Okay, good guys. So hopefully we're now moving down this whole idea of frame control in a very systematic way to get a solid skill sets that you can apply in real life scenarios. Would that be fair to say? Yeah. Right? You can see yourself using this stuff alone as you've been going through so far. And we're applying some pretty, shall we say, abstract ideas, hopefully in a very practical sort of way. I'd like to go that one stage further now and come up with something which I like to call the objection destroyer. What is an objection? Anyone? An objection is? Go ahead, Tim. A resistance, go on.
A valid concern that they have.
It's a valid concern that someone has. I think that's the best way of phrasing it. Your aim is to influence someone else to change the way they think, the way they feel, the way they behave, right? That's pretty much it, isn't it? Now, if they have no concerns, well, do you need any of this stuff to do it? You say, look, here's something. It's better than that. All right, I'll take it. I mean, it's really that simple, isn't it? Just to use the tried and tested, car salesman thing, just because we've been playing with that for a while. If there is no problem, you say, here's the car, do you want it? Yes, great, thank you, off you go, done. There's no need for anything else. Of course, life isn't usually that simple. Why? Because they have valid concerns. They have needs, they have things that have to be satisfied before they know it's the right decision, before they can go ahead with it. Does that make sense? Those are objections, essentially. Now, a lot of these things you can address very easily, very directly, but some of them are about thought loops running through their mind. For example, when I was doing executive coaching and my average client was twice my age, there is a thought loop, there is a preconception, a frame that I have to neutralize before I can begin. Any ideas what that might be? Age, right? Age sounds, it's inexperience. What can you do that I can't do because I am older, wiser, more experienced than you, essentially. You can see that how that'd be pretty obvious, right? So I have to somehow get through that point. And I can't just say to them, oh, my youth is an advantage and I know more than it looks like I know and I can get results. Honest, governor? Now, would you like to sign up on the dotted line for a coaching contract, please? Right? Is that particularly persuasive? No. But the logic of it is true, isn't it? Right? I'm using my age as an advantage. I have ideas, or I've been exposed to concepts that other people are unaware of. And I can get results that other people cannot. Yet just saying it like that, listening out loud, won't cut it. Why? An idea because it's not related to their values? Kind of. It doesn't address emotions, absolutely. What else? Go ahead.
It hasn't aligned with their objections.
It hasn't aligned with their objections. You're really, really close to what I mean. Essentially, their objection, their valid concern, and it's a valid concern, is a thought loop running through inside their mind, right? I must stop that thought loop somehow. Just telling them, stop the thought loop, is not going to cut it. Now, there are many ways to cut that thought loop out. You can give massive amounts of evidence. That's the whole social proof thing, right? Here's testimonial, testimonial, testimonial. Each one erodes the thought loop a little bit until there's no juice left inside of it. That's one way to do it. But it's long and it's slow. And I don't have the patience. So another way to do this is to use basically the way the brain works. And here's the beauty of it. The very act of me breaking through one of these thought loops proves to them that I'm exactly the right person to do the coaching in the first place, because I've already done what I said I can do. Doesn't that make sense? Do you see how that works? And I believe me, I'm about to show you something which may seem relatively small, and actually you've already done the essence of it already without realizing it yet. It may seem relatively small, but the impact it can have is huge. We're talking about hard-bitten executives. Anyone here work with executives, like board of director level, 1, 2, 3? These people are pretty hard-bitten. Wouldn't it be fair to say that it's hard to get through? Once you're on the inside, in other words, once they trust you, it's actually really easy to work with them, isn't it? But getting there it's a real struggle. You have to work quite hard to get through. It used to take me on average half an hour to do that, using what we're about to show you. Would you like to see how that works? Yeah. Sure. You already know the secret to some extent. We have an autopilot response. It's automatic. It's looping, right? It's the expectation they've come with, the framework, the hidden framework that is there but no one really talks about. Does that make sense? It's what we talked about all morning, really. And I know it's there because partly I feel it too. It's like, what am I got to offer? Or partly because people ask me, or partly because I may have already failed with previous incarnations of this, depending on what my level of experience is. Does that make sense? As it happens, I was lucky. I had worked with that level of individual before as a lawyer, so I really understood the mindset to a greater extent. I was just fortunate for me. Otherwise, it would have been a much harder way of figuring this out. So that's the first thing. I know there's expectations, and I can pretty much guess what they will be. It's a thought loop, and I have to interrupt that thought loop somehow. I want to present a reframe. In other words, this is good because I want to play the glad game with them in some respects, right? I mean, the glad game is easy to play, isn't it? The essence of the glad game, though, is not the reframe portion. The essence of the glad game is having someone accept the reframe portion. So what do we already know? What mechanism do we have that will allow us to stop thought loops, to stop automatic ideas from circulating around and around? The amygdala, right? That's what it does. Anyone here ever been in love? Anyone? Or is it just me? When that happens, how straight do you think? I mean, how your powers of critical analysis, how sharp and crystal clear are they? How logical is your behavior? Right? Has anyone here ever been scared? Or is it just me? When you're afraid, yeah, just me. When you've been afraid, how easy is it to make sense? When someone says or tries to calm you down with logic, you can recognize the logic of it, but you still don't care. Isn't that right? Have you ever been so stressed or tense or afraid of something, not like in the physical fear, but maybe like an exam coming up or something like that, that you try to read something like a text, perhaps you're doing revision at school, and you just can't make sense of it. You read the same paragraph 5 times, and you know it should make sense, but somehow you don't know what the words mean. Anyone ever have that experience? What's going on here is the amygdala is short-circuiting to your neocortex. Your neocortex is where language occurs, or the greater portion of it. It's where the logic occurs. It's where your ability to read and comprehend occurs. And it's one of the first things that shut down when the lower, more primitive parts of your brain, like the mammalian brain, the reptilian brain, start to take over. The amygdala is at the lowest part of the brain, the reptilian brain, and it can switch off your neocortex like that. Now, what I'm proposing is not that we switch people off and turn them into lizards so they can start licking walls and sunbathing, right? It will be amusing for a short period of time, but your career prospects aren't really that good at that point. However, you can stimulate the amygdala to a certain extent to cut through the thought loops and then present an idea. Here's how this works. And there is actually research that backs this up. Imagine you're selling, I don't know, you're in a supermarket and you're selling these little cheese and wine niblets, like any other cheese and wine niblets anywhere in the country, right? Supermarkets do it everywhere, right? At the end of, people come up, they'll taste a little cheese niblet, and at the end of it, they'll say, well, if you want some, they cost $10, right? And other people will take the cheese and buy it, or they won't. It's a very simple test. It's very black and white, isn't it? So, in the first trial, people taste the niblets. It's a little gift, a little reciprocity, of course, right? And you say, oh, this is a great cheese. It's only $10. Of course, they're contrasting it to other cheeses, the $5 cheese, the $2 cheese. They've got nothing else to contrast it against. $10? Well, my autopilot says I don't buy $10 cheeses. Or maybe they do buy $10 cheeses, so you have your baseline response. Some buy, some don't. Where's the reframe in that, by the way? Only $10, right? It's a great cheese, only $10. So now another group comes along, another day happens, people test the cheese, and then say, how much is it? And he goes, oh, it's 10,000 cents. That's only $10 to you and me. Do you think the sales went up or down on that second occasion? Sales went up. Why? Consider it. 10,000 cents. Do you think about $10 in the units of cents? Or isn't it 10,000? Sorry, 1,000 cents. Right? Yeah. It's 10,000 cents. Only $10. Keep counting. No. But you get the principle here, right? What's happened is it's an unusual number for the mind to manage when it comes to cents. That is enough of a surprise to trigger the amygdala mildly. You see, you don't want to trigger it intensely, like you did with, say, a shock induction, because then everything gets deleted for a while, and you have to work much harder to get the message across. Plus, it's more obvious. And the whole point of conversation hypnosis is to not be obvious. Does that make sense? If you're too obvious, you can actually trigger the opposite effect. If people think they are being influenced, you can create resistance to the fact that they feel like they're being influenced. See how that works? This is why you walk out of a store where the salesperson tries too hard. Because you feel like they're trying to influence you, which of course they are. Every salesperson has to. But you don't like it. You respond against them. That's why you leave or why you shoo them away. Make sense? So the secret is you trigger it mildly and then offer your reframe. Here, let me give you another example. University campus, people are selling these little cupcakes. You know the little cupcakes, little cakes in a cup, right? and selling, what do you sell? We sell cupcakes, only $1 a piece or whatever, right? Certain amount of people buy cupcakes. They're tasty, they're nice. Next day or next campus, they come along and there's a big sign up. Half cakes, only $1 each. What's a half cake? Any ideas? It's actually a cupcake. It's exactly the same product. Let me re-emphasize this. It's exactly the same product.
The rename is the reframe.
But it's given an unusual title. It stops the thought loops for a moment. Half cakes, what's that? And allows a fresh evaluation of what this is. So in other words, the autopilot response to cupcakes, no thanks, or yes please, has been shut down. Now you have a chance to influence. But it's only a small thing. Let me explain what I mean by the small surprise or novelty. Another little bit of research. People go around from door to door collecting money for a local charity. A nice thing, right? Unless, of course, the charity is the Let's Shoot Dogs charity, in which case, if you don't like dogs, that's not such a nice thing. In this case, it was a nice charity. So they knock on the door, and they ask, we'd like to donate some money for charity. $10 is the usual amount. And they got some, they didn't get some. It's all good. The next time, they went round and asked, we're for such and such a charity, we do such and such a thing. Exactly the same initial process. Would you like to donate money sum to this charity? You just switched the words around, right? The donations went up. Then they went around again to see, hey, can we just accentuate this effect? All right. Would you like money sum donate to this charity? Way down in response to almost nothing. Why? The final version was so awkward, it almost sounded like a clear attempt at influencing. They're like, what the hell are these guys doing? That's kind of weird. Are they trying to play with my mind? Are you using my mind? Well, sod you, close the door, don't leave me alone. Right? So the key to triggering the amygdala is it's got to be a small novelty if you want to break through a thought loop. Now, there are times for large novelties, big surprises, big shocks, like an instant induction. But those are in context where people will accept it. In other words, you've already worked to create a context up where a bigger surprise is appropriate. For example, once I got into the coaching work, I had much more leeway to do more outrageous things, to shock the pants off of them, not literally, and get a better reaction as a result. But I don't have that leeway when I first meet them. See how that works? I need mild surprise. I need a mild, something mildly unexpected. Is this making sense to you so far?